Hello, and welcome to Stinger Diecast. Today we're going to take a look at a car that when I first encountered it, I frankly thought it just was kind of weird. I found it hanging on a peg in a Hobby Lobby, and I had never seen it before. It was a car I was completely unfamiliar with, and my first thought was just like, why in the world are they putting these out? It was very strange. And this car is the Studebaker Commander. Greenlight first released this car, I believe, as part of the La Carrera Panamericana series. And let's try a different one. Doesn't want to focus on this black one. And you can't really look at this car and talk about this car without also talking about this race. The La Carrera Panamericana is a race in Mexico. It was originally run from 1950 to 1954 and then was restarted in 1988 and runs to the present day. And the race is actually coming up in October. It's running this year, October 15th through the 20th, I believe. And the interesting thing, and what's so fascinating about these cars, is that in the last 31 years that they've run this race, the Studebaker Commander has won the race 24 times, which is absolutely astonishing for a car that was originally built in 1953. And it's very strange, why is that? Why is this car still run in this race, and why is it so dominant? And it gets into the rules of the race, where the top class in the La Carrera Panamericana is called Turismo Mare, which is, I believe, stands for Gran Turismo, Grand Touring. And the class is limited to cars manufactured before 1954. And so this is why you have so many Studebakers. There's lots of other cars that run in the class as well, but this car was originally manufactured in 1953 or 1954, and so it has been running in the race the entire time. And then the question is why this car, right? Why has it been so dominant in the races? Why to this day is it still the car that everyone wants to have when they run this race? And the reason is, if we compare this, if we can get a decent view of this car, or maybe let's try this one, get a little bit better focus on the car, which I'm having, it's really not cooperating today. It's the shape, obviously. Right? If we look at a typical car from the 1950s, they didn't look like that. They look like this. Big flat front end. It's got wings or fins, it's trying to look sleek. But this thing is, even though this is a two-door coupe, this thing is a boat. And if you're going to make a race car, this is not what you want to make a race car out of. And then the sports cars from the 1950s would be typically something like this. Again, this is by comparison, this thing is not aerodynamic. But these Studebakers, they're a whole different story. It's a very sleek design. It was very radical at the point when it was introduced. And it makes a great race car. And granted, the cars that they run today are not exactly stock Studebakers. They are, heavily modified. They tend to replace the engines in them with a Chevy engine, and tune the engine to produce up to 600 horsepower. But they need a very bulletproof engine, because the La Carrera Panamericana, which I'm going to start calling the Pan Am, the Pan Am race is run, across Mexico from one end to the other, or down Mexico, I guess you could say, and it is over regular public roads, and and then between stages they need to be able to drive the cars through from point to point, and they need to be very robust and not very fragile vehicles. So they use Chevy engines for that rather than the originals. So the original racer, one of the things that I thought when I first bought these, so the first two that I purchased was this black one and this one, and these are part of La Carrera Panamericana from Greenlight, the series 3. And these were the first two that I picked up. And at the point when I got them, I assumed that at first that they were run in the 50s because they're such an old car. But as I've mentioned, these cars are still run to this day. And this black one, number 108, it ran in the race in 2008 and was actually the winner of that race. And number 113 ran in 2017 and finished third in that race. And this series, it was so strange to me that these cars were in it, and I think they've put out 18 cars in that series. So they're on Series 3. Greenlight is on Series 3. They've put out 18 cars, and of those 18 cars, 5 of them have been these Studebakers. In Series 2, they put out 3. So 3 of the 6 cars in the series were Studebakers, including this silver number 17, which ran in 2015. This car did not finish the race, so it's maybe not a car of particular distinction, but it is one of the, I think, in my opinion, one of the cooler ones in the series. This one, number 205, is the only one they have reproduced from the original race. It ran in 1954. And I tried to find the finishing position of this, but it's a little bit ambiguous. I've been so fascinated with these cars and with this race that I actually went and read a book on the race. And in this book, this is a history of the race from 1950 to 1954. They have the finishing position of this car listed as 25th. But if you go and look it up on Wikipedia, they have it listed as 52nd. So I'm not sure who is correct. The record keeping from that era was not what it is today. But anyway, this one is probably my favorite of the racing versions of this car, followed by this silver one. They're both very, very cool. And then the final one in the racing series is number 18 in a Gulf livery, which everybody loves the Gulf livery. I actually think this, as far as Gulf liveries go, this one is actually pretty cool. This one ran in 2018 and it finished 17th in the race. Now, I was talking about the cars being modified, and I talked about the engine being replaced. The only thing that they're required to keep is they have to retain the wheelbase. They can't change that. But otherwise, the cars are pretty much reworked, completely on the interior. They do tend to keep the majority of the body style, and they definitely still look very much like Studebakers. So I'm gonna bring in my my assistant here that I've dubbed Gertrude, and see if I can show this off a little bit. So this is the silver car that we were just looking at, this one, and you can see that Greenlight's done a fairly good job of reproducing the livery. It's not exact though, and the car has some modifications that you can see. This front spoiler, I guess you would say, is definitely, they did not attempt to reproduce that. They kept the stock. My camera is just not focusing today. They kept the stock bumper on the front, so that's a little bit inaccurate. But the rest of the car is very much the same. Obviously, the interior is going to be completely gutted, replaced with a roll cage and a racing seat, and the tires are going to be a much more modern racing kind of tire than they would have run in the 50s. But for the most part, the lines of the car are still there, and it's, you know, very similar. I do wish that Greenlight would, you know, go the extra mile, because since this bumper is a separate piece, that they would, you know, reproduce the air dam on the front, which would make the car look overall a little bit cooler. But it's still a very nice model overall. So what else did I want to say about the racing side? I think that's probably about it. Oh, yeah, I did want to say, so the original race ran from 1950 to 1954. It was originally conceived as, you know, in the similar vein to the Mille Miglia or the Targa Florio, and which were, you know, major road races in Europe. And it was meant to be, you know, on the international stage, the thing that, you know, all the international drivers would want to compete in. And it was quite successful in that regard, and it ran up until, you know, 1954, and the 1955 race was canceled by the Mexican government, because over the previous 5 years there had been 27 deaths in the race, and in 1955 was the year of, you know, the major Mercedes crash at Le Mans that killed so many people in the crowd, and the 27 deaths included, you know, a number of incidents with spectators, which you know, the Mexican government was not going to be happy with. Obviously, when the race was reinstated in 1988, it you know, has a little bit of a different format. It's still run on open road or closed roads, and but with, you know, much higher safety standards. So beyond the 5 racing versions that Greenlight has put out, they've also put out several others, and we'll take a quick look at those, and then we'll look at a little bit of the variations between the models. The other first of the non-race versions is this one with flames, black with flames. This was from the Flame series, as you might guess, and it's so this one was actually labeled a champion. So some of these are labeled champions, some of them are labeled commanders. And the only difference between a champion and a commander is the commander is the higher end model. It's like, you know, that has a nicer interior and maybe a bigger or better engine, or, you know, those kind of things. But in the models themselves, I have not seen any difference between the ones that are labeled champion and the ones that are labeled commander. Likewise, some of them are 1954 models and some of them are 1953. This is a 1954 model, and again, comparing it to the 1953 models, I have not seen any consistent differences. That doesn't mean there isn't any. I may just be missing what it is. There is a casting variation on these, which I'll point out in a minute, but for the most part, even though some are labeled champions, some are labeled commanders, they're largely the same. This light blue one with a blue top is from the Hollywood Series 26, and this was issued as part of or as a tie-in with the Home Improvement television show, and was apparently Wilson's car. I used to watch that show when I was a kid. I don't remember what Wilson drove, so I don't, you know, have any idea how prominent his car was. Wilson was the guy, I believe, who stood behind the fence, who you never saw anything other than the top of his head. But apparently he had a car that was featured in the show, and my memory of the period is just faulty. This yellow one is from the Hobby Shop Series 9, and it's just a nice solid yellow color. And maybe if I get rid of some of these cars, my camera will cooperate more, because it seems to be having a great deal of difficulty focusing today. Then this solid blue one is from, what was this from? Vintage Ad Series 2. And this is a 53 Commander. White wall tires. Man, Why will this not focus? Beautiful. Love this one. Love the basic ones. White wall tires. It's just an awesome classic look. So the car originally, well, the Commander itself, the name was first used by Studebaker in 1927, but obviously on a very, very different kind of car. And the last year that a car had the Commander name was in 1964. Again, a very, very different kind of car. This particular body style was used from 1953 to 1956, and this is actually the Studebaker Commander Coupe, or Coupe, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And there was a four-door version, and there was even a wagon version, but those look quite a bit different in the wagon. Oh my goodness, is that a hideous looking vehicle. But the final version that Greenlight put out, or, well, there is one more, but we'll get to that in a minute, is this police version. This one's awesome. Love police cars, especially these vintage police cars with white wall tires. This is a Indiana State Police car, and this came out in Hot Pursuit Series 34. Very, very cool version. And so I had thought I had all of these. I thought there were 10, and obviously I can be completely wrong about this, because there doesn't seem to be a good source of, what Greenlight has actually put out. But I thought I had 10, and then I was watching a video by XLT Off-Road Bear, where I think he received a gift of a Greenlight 4-pack that contained another Studebaker. So I was very surprised to see that, and of course I then had to go and get that. So this is the shell themed 4-pack that contains a red and white Studebaker, this very cool tow truck, a basic Dodge D100 pickup, and a Ford Shelby GT350. So we're going to open this. I have not pulled this Studebaker out yet, so we're going to open this and pull this Studebaker out and take a look at it. We're not going to really look at these other cars. If you're interested in any of these other cars, I recommend looking at XLT Off-Road Bear's video. He went through all of these and will do a much better job than I will. So I did try to pre-loosen these things, so hopefully we can just pull this out. And there we go. Let's set that down. Set that stuff to the side. And let's see, getting these things off, boy. Okay, not too bad. That one's going to be a little bit more problematic. All right, well, I'll get that off later. But so this is the first time I've looked at this one. This one's very, very cool. Studebaker logo and Commander. I believe this one was labeled a Commander. Yes, 1953 Studebaker Commander. Red with a white top, red interior, white wall tires, logo on the front, chrome bumpers, front and rear. Looks like it's got a wonky wheel on it now, but that's not uncommon on Greenlights and easily fixed. So, very cool. Awesome to add this to the collection. And with the other 10 Studebakers that I'm aware of. And if anybody's aware of any others, please let me know. My first impression of this car, was like, what, why is this car so interesting? Why, and was, perplexing to me. But since then, I've basically fallen in love with it. And the more that I learn about it, the more that I love it, and the more that I see them, the more that I love them. So Anyway, I just wanted to take a look at the collection, look at this new one, and share a little bit about the history and why this car is interesting. And if you have a Hobby Lobby in your area, or if another store that carries Greenlight, you can probably go there and find these hanging on the pegs, because they seem to be a bit of a peg warmer, which I think is sad. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.